Hi there, Sam Medina again from JakeTheEvilHair.com and Darkfell.com. Today we're going over some of the techniques I use in penciling. For those of you who've wondered what I do as far as sharpening, I use a Staedtler Mars Lomograph pencil sharpener. Used to prefer electric, but nowadays I kind of prefer doing it by hand because I can have a little more control over what I do with the tip of the pencil. In my case, I like for the tip of my pencil not to be perfectly sharp because then I can rotate it, move it around, and do different things with it. So we're going to work on the shoulder and arm area, which we've kind of lightly sketched in. Usually what I'll do is I tend to start with this started as a stick figure, and then I build it up with your basic shapes, cylinders and circles and things like that. And our light's coming from up there, so we're going to give ourselves a little bit of indication of shadow that way. And we have to understand there's going to be light over here as well. Just going to indicate it very lightly. You can barely see that on camera, I think, but it'll become more apparent in a moment. And I'll give myself some little lines there. Kind of indicate where our shadows are going to be. In the inking stage, you may not use all those lines because it may not be necessary. And what I'm doing now is I'm going inside here where the arm meets the body, creating kind of a heavier line. And these little lines here will eventually give us the illusion that Gladden's arm has some kind of solidity to it, even though it's just a bunch of lines on a flat piece of paper. I tend to use my pencil at an angle when I am penciling. It's just more comfortable. Whatever. Some people like to hold their pencil straight up in the air. Some people will hold it like this. I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen people pencil like this. You have to deal with whatever is more comfortable for you. And once you find what's comfortable, just keep doing it. Because if you keep changing your method, you'll find yourself being a jack of all trades, master of none. In some cases, there might be some of you out there who are so good it doesn't matter how you hold the pencil. That's not the case for me. And now they're coming up on that elbow. Now the elbow is away from the light, so we're just going to go ahead and give it that harsh, heavy line, because we already know it's going to be harsh and heavy. And we're going to go over here and use some lines to create the illusion of these forearm muscles. As if you are going around all day swinging an absurdly large sword, you're going to have some decent forearms on you. Okay, and let's try to get that a little more on center. There we go. And a little shading there. And there is the arm of a tough guy. Usually I'll start off with a very light line, especially if you make a mistake. When I was younger, I used to bear down really hard on the pencil, and then when you make a mistake, it is really hard to erase. I find going over it again especially with a soft lead like this, Murado Black Warrior, you don't end up denting your paper, and you don't end up, because if you dent your paper when you scan it, you may or may not end up with some shadows from that, and believe me, you don't want that. That doesn't happen. It's just really hard to erase sometimes when you bear down a little too hard in the beginning. And now we're going to need to create some three-dimensionality here too. So we'll give ourselves some kind of curved lines that will mimic when we go to the inking stage. Create that illusion that this arm here is a three-dimensional object. And this will probably all be kind of in shadow. Not completely, but you can indicate that with a little bit of hatching. And maybe a slightly heavier line here to indicate that the shirt is actually casting a slight shadow on his arm, and you can play with vary the line in the ink to create that illusion. And I'll just throw down his cape over here, the mantle of the Crimson Shadow. Alright, we'll be back in a little bit with another penciling tutorial. So give us a thumb up, share us, like us, love us. Check us out at darkfell.com and jaketheevilhair.com.